So my guest today is Dave Jenkins, writer, storyteller, DJ, label boss, father, known for his honesty and empathy, the way he brings real human depth into his work, someone who sees beyond the surface and captures the heart and soul of a person.
Oh,
Dave, welcome.
wow. That's an intro. You've totally disarmed me with that intro.
Oh.
I mean, it's like when you're a freelance person and you're not part of a big like organization, you don't have that much feedback on you. You're just doing your thing. Right. You haven't got anybody going like, oh, I think you should aim for this or do this or giving you any type of structure. So I don't hear opinions of me very often, not in a kind of professional capacity. So that's totally, you've just floored me.
Oh, bless. Well, that's who you are. Coming back into the music industry, Dave, after 25 years, I've been finding my footing again. And it hasn't been immediate or easy to slip back into my creative and professional groove or settle back into my truth. But the process of rediscovering myself after, through huge loss has brought me back to a place where I can finally contribute and connect authentically. I've come to see the industry clearly, its strategies, its challenges, and the places where it falls short of heart and authenticity. And that journey is what led me here to this space and to these conversations. So I first stumbled across your work a few years ago, and I was struck immediately by your energy, the way you listen, the way you use your platform to amplify those who are overlooked. You supported my first release. You featured me editorially, included me in your lineups. That kind of support, combined with your integrity, is rare and meaningful.
Wow. I mean, I can remember the day you got in touch. I can remember it really, really clearly, which is quite tricky because a lot of people get in touch all the time. And I don't always remember the first encounters with people, but I had decided, I don't know what it was that had annoyed me that day about the industry, but I didn't feel there was something that made me think like there were just people aren't getting the right opportunities. And I thought, do you know what? I'm just going to put a thing out into the universe and say, send me music. I had an inkling that One More Thing would eventually become a label, but I just put a thing out, and I remember the image that it was like somebody helping somebody over a wall, and it was like, send me your demos. Don't know what I'm going to do with them, not too sure, but I'm just keen to hear music, unsigned music. And so many different people got in touch, and you were one of them. And I was really keen to hear non-drum and bass. But a lot of people who pay attention to what I'm saying naturally have come through drum and bass because that's what I've been representing and best known for. You came through with a number of different ideas and skits, but Peggy Caddis, like I still remember that tune. Like the first time I heard it, it's like, I want that. And that was one of the first tunes that made me think, I'm going to release some of this music. And then we did, kind of went back and forth and developed it. And it was on the first paying compilation. Then the One More Thing released April 2023 or 4. 2023, I think
it was either, was it 22?
Might have been 22.
I think it was 22, aye.
That's how long it's been.
2022, I know.
And yeah, it was a real spur of the moment decision to ask people for music. I was totally inundated. I find it very difficult to say no. So a lot of the tracks that I took on and released as like part of a free download, I probably should have got back to the artist and said, you know what, that needs a little bit more work. Let me help you develop it. Let me bounce back and forth. But with yours, it was a solid piece of music. You've made it in tribute to someone very special in your life, which made it even more special. It's still something I draw for now. Still, Peggy Caddis is always on my USB. And not every tune that I've ever released is always on my USB in that way. So I can still remember the first time you came into my world in that way.
Oh, that's really lovely. Thank you so much. That means a lot. And Peggy, I still hold her really close. She was kind of part of my alter ego. She was a no-nonsense aunt, and I try and kind of take that bit of, no-nonsense from her.
Go on.
So you've built a career across many facets: journalism, DJing, label work, storytelling. And for me, looking back, I think music has always been a part of my life. growing up in the west coast of Scotland, I was surrounded by, you know, my grandmother and my aunties singing and jiving on Sundays. Peggy Caddis, she was there as well.
Go on, Peggy.
My aunties, you know, and my uncles, they all played in bands. And the whole house was just alive with sound. So that early exposure shaped how I understood creativity and connection. So looking back, what first drew you into this world, and what was it that captured your imagination in those early days?
There's so much there. And I know later on we're going to talk about kind of childhood. So, I mean, I'd like all of my memories of childhood are music related. And I'll get to that, I think, really. But in terms of like the stuff that I do now, I can pinpoint it all to a night in a club called the Hippo Club in Cardiff. I mean, I've been like heavily into rock bands. I was playing the guitar. I had this almighty switch into a raver about the age of 15. Suddenly I had blinkers on, didn't care about rock anymore. I was just a raver, really wanted to go out and hear this in the clubs. There was a great underground club in Cardiff. We only really had one really solid, consistent club. So we would doubt, you know, we just lap up anything we were given. You know, it could be drum and bass one day, it could be hard house the next day. And there was a moment, I've said it in another interview before as well. Nick Warren was playing. He was in Way Out West with Jodie Westernoff, and he dropped Olive, You're Not Alone. And it was about 4 a.m. And it was one of those times where like, I knew my mates were all around, but I was on my own, and the lights went all blue and green, and I had all this space. And there's this vocals now that are literally ripping in goosebumps now. Like, You're Not Alone, and like those synths. And I made a promise to myself. It's like, I am going to spend my life in this music. And I do whatever I can to be part of this. This is changing my life as I'm thinking this. And I can remember it. Like, I could see my mates like silhouettes around. It's like, this is me. This is whether I'm going to be a DJ, whether I'm going to be that shady guy in the corner, whether I'm going to own a club or be a security guard. I didn't know what I was going to do. And I was totally open-minded to whether it would be legal or illegal. I just wanted to be part of that. And there was quite a lot of underworld stuff going on in the venue. It was a den of iniquity. And I loved it. I loved the music and everything. And from that very moment, that was the moment where I was like, I'll do anything I can to make this part of my life.
How old were you, Dave?
17,
wow,
I think. And then, you know, it took a few years to get decks and stuff like that. And a lot of wrong paths, a lot of really wrong paths and wrong decisions, which maybe I thought was shortcuts. Sometimes I had to just because I had no money. But I eventually kind of made my way into where I am now. And I feel like the journalism side of things. So I was DJ. And even my initials are DJ. I'm going to be a DJ. And it was kind of reminiscent of like in school, I didn't care about my GCSEs because I was going to be a heavy metal singer. I was going to be a singer in a band. That's it. You know? And I was so defiant that I was going to be that I didn't, you know, I can't revise anyway. I don't have the brain for that. So I wouldn't have done well in my exams anyway. But the heavy metal thing was my excuse for not doing well. And then the DJing thing was the same. I'm going to be a DJ. And it was presented to me by someone really dear to me that maybe I needed a plan B and maybe I needed another way into music as well if I really wanted to be in music. I thought, maybe you're right. And the next person to come around the house was like an editor of a nightlife magazine in Cardiff. And he was like, well, do some reviews for us. You know, I was just saying, I don't know what to do. You know, like I can't be doing what I'm up to at the moment all my life. I will end up in prison. How am I going to? And he was like, oh, do some writing. You know, do you write anyway? And I was like on the side. I would be writing little poems or drawing little cartoons. Not many of my friends ever saw that. Only my partner would, because I was always trying to be the man. And I was always like, I'd moved out home very early, very young. So I had a very old head on my young shoulders and I wouldn't show any emotion, certainly wouldn't show any creative side at that point, besides DJing. And it's like, yeah, I can write. So I started to write and I was like, hang on, well, you know, all these DJs like Rob the Bank and Seb Bontaine and even the dude from the Pet Shop Boys, like ran smash hits. Like journalism was a routine. I was like, yeah, I just thought, right, okay, so what if I need some GCSEs? I need an A-level or two. Cardiff's got like a really, really good journalism school in the university. So I'm going to do this. That'll be 4 years. I can still do whatever I'm doing. But have a plan, have my get out clause. So I got into journalism. And that was strange in itself because I started uni like early 20s. So I was a lot older than a lot of the kids there who'd been bankrolled by their parents. And they didn't really care about journalism. They were there because uni was part of their, what was expected of them. Whereas with me, it's like, right, I am into this. This is my path out of the slightly dubious lifestyle choices that I made at that point. And yeah, I started to really get into it. And then there was a choice. I mean, I applied for a job on a computer magazine and a job on a music magazine. We couldn't move to London because my partner had a much better job in Cardiff and that was as big as she wanted to get city-wise. So I fully respected that. We're still together now as well. So I'm really glad that I did. We've got a family and all that. But it was only Bristol was the nearest publishing jobs. So I applied for both. I got the music job, long story short. I could have gone down the computer game route because I was just as nerdy about gaming. And that might have been more lucrative when you look at like famous journalists who've come from gaming magazines like Charlie Brooker and people like that. Maybe that might have been, that was a closing doors moment for me or something. But I got this job on a magazine called IDJ. And slowly but surely, that just like, I'd had a whole string of jobs, awful jobs. I promised myself I'd never work in an office again. Promised myself that I'd never work with people again. Suddenly I found myself in this office and found myself accepted. And it was amazing. Like, it was still some of my best days of my career. Like this.
Nice.
I'm in. I'm getting sent all this music. I'm getting sent around the world.
Brilliant.
And slowly but surely the DJing slipped further and further down the priorities because I was kind of living the life of a DJ without like getting a decent money because DJs were paid at that point a lot better. Well, I get myself tangled up in knots there. Like, let's not talk about DJs' fees quite yet. I'll rant about that later.
That's okay.
But yeah, I realized like, okay, this is my path. This is my life. And I think when you like boil it all down, and you said it yourself, storyteller, whether it's DJing, whether it's journalizing, being a journalist rather, curating for the label, doing a lineup, doing a podcast, anything, it's all storytelling. And that's what it kind of like, that's what everything kind of boils down to really. But my routine was definitely, and I would introduce myself at like college talks and stuff as a failed DJ.
Right.
Like, hi, I'm Dave. I'm a failed DJ, but a successful journalist. Things have come right back full circle for me, which we'll kind of get to, but it was all to get more gigs. I thought, well, I'll get a job in a magazine within a couple of years. I'll be on all the bills. I'll be going around the world. I won't need the magazine. No, it turns out I really did. And it turns out I'm a good journalist as well. Like, that suits my personality and my curiosity.
When did you realise that you were good at storytelling, writing? I mean, when have you always been? I mean, was you always good at, it was just in you?
It's weird and it's a bit dark.
Right.
I do tell stories, but stories aren't always truthful.
Right.
And as a kid, I was awful. I was a liar. I was the worst.
You fibber.
And I don't know why. I've started to I've actually for years I wouldn't even admit it to myself. I don't know why. I can remember the first time I told like a real all-out lie about what I was doing that night, and it was in like the second year of junior school, and I was going to see Michael Jackson. He was playing in Cardiff Arms Park. I didn't have a ticket. Because I didn't have a ticket. We didn't have a fucking ticket for Michael Jackson. Sorry, I don't know if I can swear or not.
Go for it.
But I can remember saying that I was, and then I had to kind of, perpetuate that lie.
Right.
But also I would hear myself exaggerating.
That's what I was going to say.
So,
is it more an exaggeration than a lie?
Sometimes in my teens, it got really dark.
Right, okay.
In my teens. And I think it all comes down to lack of confidence. And now, and certainly in all my years as an adult, I downplay my stories and what I do and who might have been in the room or what might have happened, because it's so crazy that it seems like too far-fetched. But certainly at the time, I think I did it to protect myself. I don't know, but stories in general, whether they're truthful, whether they're fictional, whether they're to protect myself or whether I'm in the middle of a room, essentially masking, because if I've got a good story, I know then that people are going to listen to that story, enjoy it. So for that time, I'm not like overly waffling like I am now, like, you know, kind of nervous anxiety. Like, I've got a good story and I know how to nail this, and people will enjoy it. And if they don't, then they'll move away, and that's fine. People will enjoy the story, and then they'll share stuff back with me, and the spotlight's off me again. But I did, like, I loved magazines as a kid. I loved, like, getting computer magazines or smash hits, and then like a little bit later Kerrang and, like, you know, rock magazines and stuff. Reading was a huge thing.
Joy to read. Aye.
And I remember my mum, like, I was grounded. I can't remember what for. I was constantly grounded for different things. This one, I think, might have been for breaking into a house. Like, it was a big one. Yeah, it was. Like, the house wasn't particularly big. It was a terrace house. Like, but it was a big bad thing for me to do. I knew it wasn't. It was an empty house, by the way. I wasn't burgling, but I was about. I was in first year of high school, so I was 11, 12.
Right.
And I had nothing to do. My mum came in with a bunch of Stephen King books.
Right.
She was like, try this. Like, you know, I tried it, and I read Misery. And it still stuck with me now. And it was like, you know, so like, later on, I'll talk about how my dad gave me music. It was the biggest gift he could ever give me. My mum gave me reading. And I'd make up stories in English. I remember one particular story that I wrote in English. It was questioned. Like, the authenticity of it was questioned. And it was too, like, there was all sorts of feedback going back to my dad about being too gory and stuff like that. But stories in general, I think, and now, like, you know, kind of as an adult working in the capacity that I do, it was fed back to me when I was working at Drum&BassArena by some of the video guys, like, big up Bailey Hyatt, who were just saying, like, you've got a knack of seeing a story, of going like, right, okay, there's the thread, having these interviews and going, right, okay, well, we can go there, we can do that, or this is the story.
That's your skill.
It's a very, very natural. It almost feels like a bit of a blag because it's not something that I've had to train. It's not a discipline.
It's your gift.
Yeah. It's a gift. I'll take that. I'll take that.
Absolutely, it's your gift. Having been away for so long, I've noticed changes in how the landscapes have shifted over the past decade. Have you seen the industry evolve, both in terms of its opportunities and its challenges?
Yeah, I really like this question. And I'll go back a few other decades. So 10 years ago, I think it was really interesting. There was clearly a move to create more opportunities. Conferences like Amsterdam Dance Event, ADE, have been around for a while, and you could see drum and bass was starting to kind of catch up and go, ooh, right. Hold on, if we do these workshops and we do this, we're getting access to new talent straight away. We're doing something good. And you could see that there was a kind of a change as things were kind of getting a bit more commercial as well within, you know, the kind of bass world. This is also the point where I'd gone from journalist to front of camera. So I started moderating on like conference panels and stuff. Right. And I'd done it a little while before, like 10 years before at conferences. And I wasn't brilliantly comfortable with it, but I knew that I could do it. So it's like, I'll push myself. And then within drum and bass, I really felt I could do it because I knew these people, you know, writing like a keynote speech for Andy C, or sitting in, like, you know, kind of interviewing Marky, Pendulum, Future Bound and D-Bridge to an audience of about 200 people. Oh my God. That might be an exaggeration, actually. That might be one of those, like, it might have been less, but it was lots of bright lights and lots of people in the room. Talking about commercial drum and bass and whether it was right or wrong, and like quite intense live things. And from that, Drum&BassArena said, like, yo, do you want to step in front of the camera? And I'd been suggesting it before. I was like, dude, you're old, you're a white man, let's give other people their opportunities. But something had happened. They'd made a decision. I was like, right, we're going to send you on a TV training course. So this was like round about kind of 10 years ago. And I'm really, really grateful. That's just less than 10 years. But so that was happening, and there were opportunities starting to come about, and you could see people waking up to the fact, you know, like topics at these conferences as well were really important. You know, kind of talking about opportunities for women in the industry and the challenges that women have had to overcome, or non-binary people. these topics were beginning to come to the fore, which was really, really important. And he was kind of seeing that. It's like, okay, this is getting exciting. And I made lots of great friends during that kind of time, like people like Scar Tip. He actually came out to the first conference or the second conference that we did. Yeah, totally. And he'd come out, he'd read my news story and he thought, I want to improve my career. I want to go and have feedback off Alex Perez and, you know, like listen to Andy C talk. And he came out and we made friends through that. So you can see that happening. Cool. And a lot of that was great, I think. But there's also, I think, behind the scenes when you're talking about the wider picture of the industry, not all of that came about for the right reason. And I've learned a term, I won't say which label taught me this term. It's not a label that I've done much work for. It's either the creator's economy or the producer's economy. And it's basically a market for people who want to become artists, who want to learn. And it's the most cynical thing. It's just, you know, it's there. It exists to take money off people's hopes. You know, it's got a name. And it's, so a lot of these conferences aren't always like, you know, the people, I do believe it's good for the culture. And when I'm writing the news about it, or when I'm on the stage talking about it, or on a camera talking about it, I really do believe that these opportunities are there and they could be, you know, stuff can happen from these. But the ticket sales and the revenue and the traffic and the data, a lot of that is developed for other reasons, I think, or there are additional benefits of creating it. When I started working in magazines like middle of 2000s, maybe late 2000s, big tech house labels like Tool Room were starting up academies and then they were launching 360 deals. So you get them in, get them on a deal. You've got their gigs, you've got their this, you've got, you know, you've got complete control over these hopeful talents. And I remember going to a conference and actually talking at it. I was hosting one of the things called IMS. It's either International Music Summit or Ibiza Music Summit.
Right, okay.
And that's when I really first saw like the real cynical business side of the industry. Because you know, I'd come in as this hopeful DJ, realized I liked being a journalist, saw a lot of behaviors there which were really, really, really not cool. I could go on a massive rant here. I won't, but it was the real cynical side of the business. And it was like, wow, okay, this is the music industry. This is the real, you know, and they're talking about like the GDP of the EDM market and stuff. It's like, this is so far away from where I want to be or how I want to see the dance world. Then you go back another 10 years to opportunities when I started and it was like totally closed off in the mid to late 90s. It had this great peak and you could see people, they were looking after their bit and they wouldn't let any of this new kids come in.
Right.
So we had to start our own thing.
Wow.
And it's the same. The one consistency since I've started is most people who have staying power and longevity in the game and have stuck with it and been persistent are people who've set their own thing, done their own thing with a crew of friends or on their own or anything like that. So with the opportunities and stuff like it's changed, but it's always been quite tricky. And I think now is probably one of the best times if people are given a chance. But I think in terms of like transparency, in terms of representation, there is less and less places for sinister individuals who've got a bit more of a kind of agenda to hide. People will get called out, screenshots are taken.
There's a lot of...
People share information and stuff. And you still see it now. You know, there's big labels within our world who are setting up, you know, little academies and workshops. And it's like, shouldn't you have been doing that a while ago? Come on. Like, and I'm really cynical. And I think it comes down to having been a liar for so long as a kid. I don't believe anything.
I love the fact that you're dead honest about it.
Well, I mean, I have to be. And you introduced me as honest at the
Yes, and
start.
you are. It's great.
This is the first time, you know, this is the raw truth. Like, and
be.
it's why I will always pull myself up, drag myself over hot coals and be a real harsh self-critic of myself because I haven't always been truthful. So a liar can spot a liar. And you do see these opportunities, these things being set up. And I know they're great. And they're like, if anybody's watching thinking, is this about my label? Yeah, it probably is. Like, you know, and maybe people will look at me mentoring people and think the same thing. I literally want to help people and give something back.
There's a difference.
You're getting a real benefit of helping, giving people a lift and stuff like that. But I think like the opportunities are harder now just because clubs, like money is tight for the midsection and the underground. A lot of stuff is being kind of kept up top, and up top there aren't opportunities. They are looking for bankers. They are looking, like, not as in working bankers, but people who can guarantee them a return. So whether that's, you know, and then they either help them out with their productions or things like that. But I think within our world, the grassroots world, there's loads of great little things happening. People are open-minded, and that DIY spirit is that thing. You know, it's one of the things that really, really attracted me to all of this. Is that it's like, hang on, can we just do that? Can we hire that cafe? Can we use those speakers? Can we do what? We can do that. We can charge a £5 to get in. Right, cool. Let's do it. Let's print some flyers. And that kind of thing does still exist. I think it's whether people can then continue the momentum and go through months and months of empty dance floors, years of empty dance floors, to get to the point where they feel that, oh, they're able to pay bills with it and stuff like that.
Coming back full of passion and excitement, blazing, that's a word I can use. I've had to navigate balancing personal responsibilities with professional roles. And along the way, I've learned a lot about how that balance shapes the way we work and support others, and to balance my personal nature with the professional world. How has balancing your personal responsibilities alongside your professional roles shaped the way you approach the music industry and support other artists?
This is really, really interesting because, I mean, I think it comes in two parts. So now, like, because first I was like, well, what are my personal responsibilities? And that is essentially me being a dad now. The biggest personal responsibility I will ever have in my life. And that definitely shapes how I operate in the scene now. As a mentor, as like most of my artists are a good 20 years younger than me. I am referred to, like Lakeway refers to me as his music dad. And so like when I first heard it, it was like, oh man, like I thought we were mates. Well, you know, we are, but I am also responsible for him in a way. And anybody who is on the label, and there's definitely a kind of paternal, fatherly kind of vibe. And I really like that. I love, like, I didn't bank on when I became a dad how like differently people in the industry treat you or see you or respect you. One particular person I've worked with closely over the years, off and on, has even said, and I won't say because, you know, yeah, it doesn't matter who it is, but they said that one of the things about me that really made them knew that they could trust me and that I was going to stay true to my word and be professional is the fact that I've been in the same relationship for my entire adult life, that I'm a proud dad, and that there are certain things, you know, I'm not sleeping around. I'm not going to loads of after parties. I hold it down. So being a dad has been like a revolution in that type of way. And that's definitely shaped the way that I help people. And then I think back was like, well, that's only like the last kind of like, 13 years. So what was it before, you know? And I think that's just my passion. My responsibility is to remain as passionate about music as possible. Like I am that autistic kid with his dinosaurs. I never moved on from that. I can talk and talk and talk and talk about music and the industry and my career within it and anybody else's career and DJ sets and the technology and the culture and all the influences and things that were sampled and labels and no. You take me out of that subject, like I cannot handle life at all. So I don't know if that's like a responsibility or not, but it's like my responsibility to myself is to make sure that I feel comfortable. And I think, you know, that passion that's my personal, I don't know if is my passion, my personal responsibility. I'm not too sure, but I think before being a dad, I think that's what held me in very good stead, that when people met me and they talked to me, and I wasn't in front of the camera so much, I'd be this enthusiastic voice at the end of the phone or at the end of an email. And then people would meet, it's like, oh my God, wow, okay, you really do love this shit.
I often ask myself how I approach helping others while maintaining my own creative integrity. And for me, right now, it's the podcast. You know, not just a set of headphones, but an immersive space, you know, a blank canvas where people can feel everything and truly connect, you know, to the work. It's how I try to give back while staying true to my vision. How do you approach helping others while maintaining that creative integrity?
I love this because you see me as a creative individual.
Aye.
And I don't think journalists are always seen as creative individuals.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
quite often, like I was interviewing a very well-known DJ really not so long ago at all, and I compared my role with them, and there was an immediate flinch. I was like, I'm a musician, you're just a fucking journalist type of thing. Now, I read that into the flinch. It might not have been, but they're generally, like, being a journalist isn't kind of seen as the most creative thing. But like for me, it's just my creative integrity is the process, just getting into something and going, right, I want to do this. How do I do this? I'm going to do this. Mm-hmm. And as a kid, I was making like little radio shows with a microphone on the tape to tape. I was doing little reviews for like Your Sinclair magazine. Like I wouldn't send them off to Your Sinclair magazine, but I'd be writing, like pretending I make a magazine. And that, like, it's hyper creativity. I don't care what I'm making, whether it's a magazine or a bootleg or a flyer or painting a painting. Mm-hmm. It's just doing that thing. Mm-hmm. And as long as I'm able to do that, that's my creative fulfillment intact, less so integrity. But I think helping people as a music journalist is like fundamental to being a music journalist in that way. Like it's boosting people. When I graduated as a journalist, it was around about the time of journalists, just like they had an awful name. The whole culture and the profession of journalism was pretty much in the gutter because of the world, the news of the world, phone hacking, all of this. So I would never call myself a music journalist. I think when I got to magazine editor, then I'd say magazine editor. I'd be like, oh, I work on magazines, but generally I was a music writer. But then people would be like, oh, what music do you write? So, oh, no, I can't play a note, mate. I write about music. Uh-huh. And I was at odds with this for a very long time. As time has gone by and the more conversations I have and the more the new generation have taught me, the value of journalism has changed again. I mean, if you are a dedicated journalist and you're true to the integrity of what journalism is, then it is a really proud trade to have. That is my trade, like before anything. But I think like music journalism, like sports journalism, is a very unique field within a wider culture or a wider profession. Music journalism, like if so I'll compare it to food journalism because I went into food journalism. I did a little side quest in food journalism for a while and I thought that was going to be the way. Food journalists are the worst. They're the worst because they get given a recipe, they follow that recipe, they think they're as good as the chef. They don't do it in high pressure scenarios with 100 seats. And I went on a trip to India. I had a curry magazine with the British Curry Club, and I went on a trip to India with like 40 odd food journalists and 10 chefs. There was only one journalist I actually connected with. The rest of them, they went to much they went to proper, like, you know, expensive schools. They went to Oxford and Cambridge and stuff. I was this little scally who has managed to get his life on track from Cardiff with a magazine full of curry puns, essentially. And they made me feel awful, absolutely awful. And the way that they spoke and the way that they spoke down to people and clicking their fingers and this and that and making demands of the PRs. And I hung out with the chefs. For the whole of the trip. It was like, right, well, food journalism is definitely not for me. And at that time, Drum&BassArena had called me back in and said, do you want to specialise on drum and bass? Do you want to come in and run our blogs? I was like, wow, okay. And I got back into it. And that's why I really thought about music journalism and what it is and what its purpose is. And at the time, everything was going digital. So we'd gone from magazines to digital. And I was never comfortable reviewing. I'd written some scathing reviews in the magazine and I was never comfortable with them, like, because quite often you're running tight on time. The new Daft Punk album has come in. You don't like it because it's going to take you years to start really enjoying it for what it was meant to be. So you give it 2 out of 5. Not cool. Like, and then also feeling quite proud of some of the snarky remarks you've made. Awful. Internet time. People can listen on their own volition. They can be their own reviewers. So it's for me to tell the stories, to pinpoint the right things, to curate and go, yo, this is wicked and this is why. This person is really impressive and these are the reasons why. The stories again. And that made me realise, it's like, right, music journalism is really special. So if you gave me a recipe for a tune, one, I wouldn't have a clue what half the terms are, or I wouldn't have the technology or the wherewithal to follow your recipe. Whereas, you know, with food journalism, you can do. And I think music and sports journalism are the two where we're fans. You know, we might have been previous musicians or had experience in other capacities within that field, but there is this level of praise and respect and celebration of it as an art form or a culture. Obviously, if something's bad, if somebody's done something or somebody's like really like, you know, kind of maybe, let's say, charged far too much for something which really isn't very good or behaved in a certain way, then people need to be called out. Real journalism needs to happen. But generally, a music journalist is like the most enthusiastic parent on the side of the pitch being like, yeah, come on, music. Like, come on, everybody, yo, like stop being boring and doing your washing and doing your job and breathing. Come and listen to this band or whatever. And it's that kind of enthusiasm. So like for me, music journalism is helping. So the helping is all part of the creative integrity for me. That's really right. In that way. And just boosting people, and, you know, especially when like there is a bit of kind of stripes in it as well. Like I was one of the first people outside of Knowledge magazine and ATM to interview Chase and Status. The first person to interview Claude Von Stroke, which took me to San Francisco and took me around the world with Claude Von Stroke. There's, you know, these, but you don't know at the time. You're just interviewing these new acts. They're coming through. You're really excited about them. They're really excited. Sometimes that gets forgotten about. Other times that does get remembered, and people come back and they're like, you gave me my first interview, you did this. And there's a bit of bragging rights there. And it's like, wow, okay, cool. Like I was able to identify that and look at where you've come, and just being that tiny, really grain of sand in their journey. It's like, okay, that's cool. That's
absolutely.
I like that form of help, you know?
I think it's when I ask myself, you know, I think what drives me just now, it's like what you were saying, Dave, it's love for the arts, it's for the expression, it's for the connection, you know? And I think I've always been creative. And I think, like the wonderful Katya said in Series 1 episode, you know, it's in our DNA. How can we not be creative, you know?
Yeah, totally.
And I think after losing my nephew last year, it changed everything, you know, for me. And I think everything that didn't matter fell away, Dave, you know, fear, doubt, ego. They were all illusions. And what was left was truth and purpose. So I'd like to ask you, what drives your motivation and resilience in a music scene that can be demanding, unpredictable, and often unappreciative?
It's definitely unappreciative. You know, like I was literally just saying about some people remember things, some people really don't. But then what is my motivation? Why am I doing this? And if I'm doing it for praise and thanks, then I've been wasting my life. So, and the other word there, the unpredictability, I love that. I love the unpredictability. There's no possible way, for example, that when I launched One More Thing, that I knew that that was going to get me back into DJing after having, you know, really made the decision to give it up for 10 years. No way. Or like yesterday, I'm curating stuff for a compilation we're going to put out in a couple of weeks' time. I got in touch with an artist who I really should have got in touch with about a month before. They sent me this amazing stuff, and now I've got this amazing intro and outro for this album, which I never would have got. And it's like, can we do this? Are you up for this? Yeah, bang, bang, bang. Last week, I was recording a podcast with Fireworks Factory, one of my new artists. Somebody called me up and said, yo, I've got a dance studio for this day. I'm going to record this, but I've got a couple of spare hours. Do you want to come and do something in there? So I quickly rang up Max, Fireworks Factory. Yo, should we record a music video? Yeah, right, why not? Bang. And that flexibility.
That's you.
Like, I mean, it's unpredictability, but it's also kind of like the ability to just go to just about turn and go, yep, right, cool, yep, get in the car, come on, let's go. So that I really, really love. But I think what really drives me again, like, is one, I've had crap jobs. I've had awful jobs of all kinds and really can't go back to them. And I've also lived a life which was full of worry and paranoia and fear. I'm waking up in the middle of the night and thinking, like, oh my God, is this the day when the door gets bashed down? I've had those type of experiences for a long time. So now living in music for all of this time, and living in music and just living in music and not having anything else going on in the background, that is, you know, that I found my spot, I found my space, and I know what color the grass is on other sides of this great pasture.
Absolutely,
I guess.
yeah.
And I think that's what keeps me going. And again, just my love of it. Like, I really do love all of this, like music, telling stories. And there was one thing, like, it was one particular person who's very influential in my life, working on a magazine, and Casper and Rusco's Fabric CD came through. Dubstep was just about blowing up, and this was the moment. This was like the kind of the benchmark moment, or the watershed. That's it. And when it came, I was like, oh my god! Like, I knew it was coming. Put it on. It's quite screechy. It's quite broy. It's quite aggy. I was 29, 30, I think, at that time. The person sitting opposite me, they're about 10 years older than me, and he wasn't in the best place in his life at that stage, but he just looked up and he was like, this is fucking shit, put your headphones on. And I made myself a promise. I was like, wow, if I start to have that feeling about music, about contemporary music, gone. I've got to go.
That's it, it's over.
And there are certain aspects of music, you know, I've been quite vocal on. I think that drum and bass has taken quite a lot of wrong turns lately. Not the drum and bass I'm releasing, but generally speaking, I think we're chasing, there's a lot of false idols, let's say, that are being worshipped. You know, and cool, whatever, that's mainstream. I'll push the stuff that I really like. But as long as I can find stuff that I really like and that I believe in, and that when I talk to the people, I know that we're the same, just 20 years apart or whatever, or then I'm still here. I'm still doing the right thing, and there's still a place for me, I think.
Absolutely. Really. Jake and I have been listening to your mix in the car. A mix that you're proud of, and rightly so.
Yeah.
Right. It's personal. It feels like an insight to your inner landscape, the moods, the mental noise, the creative chaos and brilliance that sits underneath your day-to-day. Can you talk to me about that?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's like, my favorite thing to do as a DJ is make mixes. When I'm playing in front of people, you've got to worry about whether they're going to stay on the dance floor or not. When you play this really obscure thing or change the tempo, making mixes and telling stories has always been like making mixtapes. Make a mixtape for someone I fancied in school or anything, like, and you'd really labour over it. And making a mix is like that, really, but for anyone who cares to listen. And this particular mix comes about through, in fact, we're talking about unpredictability and that openness. This year, for the first year, I've done some spoken word. Never really even thought about doing spoken word. We're going to get to that. But Dear Hill got me into that. And I thought, right, I'm going to do this mix. And it's all, instead of talk about the song that I've done, which is a very personal song and all about my mental health and arguing with my gremlins, I thought I'm going to build a whole mix around this and use the vocals. And I mean, I used to listen to a lot of turntablist mixes, or like Laurent Garnier, Francois K, Craig Richards, DJ Food, all of these kind of real deep digging techno DJs who come from disco or come from this. I'd be like, how have you done this? How have you managed to mix like a 70s disco thing with an acid house thing and a punk thing, like, and you've made it work? I don't get it. How do you do that? And it's literally by being old. Like, for me anyway, that's my cheat code now. It's like, suddenly I can think that much further back. And the reason why I stopped doing music journalism for a while was because I thought this is a young person's game. You need to be out there all the time. And I didn't know if I wanted to be out there. And meeting a lot of people when they're getting into their mid-30s, they have the same thing. But then I was able to come back through that and go, no, I can be as old as I like and do this. So that mix was, I did it on my 47th birthday. I had a little idea, and there's like, I had a couple of little things together in a playlist, but there's loads of stuff that's like, you know, either forthcoming or just been released on the label. So that was special to me, but also being able to kind of go from all of these different tempos. And like, DJ technology is amazing now. It wasn't quite, you had to be really dexterous and be able to scratch a lot to do these type of mixes before. And now with loops and like keeping the master key and stuff, it's so much easier. But I'm really glad, you know, you asked for a couple of things. You asked for an article or something to kind of reflect me creatively. And the first thing that came to my mind was that mix, because I'll have to leave it. Like, sometimes I listen to a mix too much and then it's too predictable. But recently I had it in the car the other night and it came on. It's like, okay, it's been a month or two since I've heard it. It's like, oh, this tune and this tune. And some things relate to certain sets that I played this year, but other things are like, I'm just going to try this. And
And it worked.
wow. Okay. Like quite like a really heavy trance record and a drum and bass remix of the Superman theme. And I thought I'd like to get a musicologist to explain why that mix works and explain why it even came to my head, because they're both very complex melodies bouncing off each other. It's like, how did I even think of this? Was this like, you know, do I have a musical knowledge that I'm unaware of in the back of my brain there going like, they're going to work? Or is it just the same chords and just different arpeggios going at different times?
Right.
I mean, that's something that I want to make a little documentary about at some point. But it's really cool that Jake's listened to it as well.
Put it in the car.
It's obscure, it's weird, it's different, it's not going to be for everyone. But even if one or two of those tunes aren't, other tunes will be. And it's that ability as well to go from like really minimal and really kind of like, where's this going? What's this doing? To like that, just out of the blue, and then bring it back down. And they're my favourite sets as well, where you're glued to the dance floor and it's like, I'm not going. Even if I need the loo, I'm not going, because I am locked into this.
I'm in this. I think it reminded me a wee bit of when I get my radio show with Subtle Radio. You know, I was kind of dipping into different genres, Dave, and I loved it. You know, I was kind of stepping away. I always kind of ended in drum and bass, but they didn't want, when I got the residency, they didn't want drum and bass. Shona, we want you to bring in. And I really enjoyed, you know, starting off maybe at 90 BPM and gradually building my way up, bringing different genres in. And it was great fun.
Yeah.
I loved it. Absolutely loved it.
I got to shout out Subtle Radio, because I did a back-to-back with Scar Tip there. And we arrived too early, so we went to the pub. And then I had a few tricks up my sleeve. And when we play together, we are trying to throw each other off track and trying to wow each other. Like, what the heck is this? And like, he's really into world music, and I'm really into like a lot of weird house music, like old house music. And I played this like 1920 Chicago bootlegger kind of, I don't know. It's like, yeah, it's it's 1920 Chicago basically, but with a house beat. But I was a little bit sloppy because we'd had a few sherbets before. And one of the dudes who runs the channel came in with a book on how to DJ properly.
Oh my
and he showed
goodness.
it to me and he said, if you do another mix like that, we're going to give you this book and you're out of here. and I cringe when anybody says Subtle. Luckily, it was Scar Tip's show and he has been able to go back, because we come out of there and he was like, I think we're a little bit too drunk for that. And I was like, really sorry. I mean, he's gone back, so it's okay. But so I can kind of relieve and tell that story now. But when he showed it to me, I was mortified. I've listened back and it wasn't that bad. But sometimes it's the tune more than the execution of the mix. And I think I'm quite old school with that. I don't mix in key. I don't mix in sync. I don't even look at the numbers. I go on my ears, and then suddenly, like, if someone's back to back and they're like, oh, come on, let me just adjust that for you.
Exactly.
As long as it kind of feels like it's going in, I'm kind of happy. When I'm listening back, I'm like, oh, why wasn't I that more precise? But I was in the moment.
Absolutely. And the rules are, there ain't no rules, that's it.
Yeah.
I listened back to do you know what? I haven't listened to drum and bass for a long time. I'll be honest, I haven't listened a good couple of years. And I listened to half of your Why Do We Tell the DJ to Fuck Off?
Wow. Yeah, that was another thing I sent you.
Wild in scope, almost obsessive in detail.
Yeah.
You called it your most accurate reflection of how far you'll take an idea, just like what you were saying, even through burnout and self-doubt. I wondered what you took from that project, not just as a journalist and a DJ, but as a human navigating the edges of passion and exhaustion.
Wow.
Aye.
I hadn't seen this question before. I mean, it was mad.
I added that in.
No, I'm great.
Right.
I'm glad that you have as well.
Aye.
I mean, it was such a weird time. And I'd had this one idea where, and it was all about just the art of the fuck off. I really love the fact. I mean, it's turned into an awful crass meme now. You've got MCs that are like, when I say DJ, you say fuck off. And it's like, right, you've missed the point completely. But I love the Britishness of just being like, that's so good. I'm going to have to take the fuck right off. And there's something really great and British about it. And the original idea was like a book, and I started with one particular tune, and which made me have that fuck off feeling. And then I asked them to pick another one, and we'd gone through some big names in the first 10. Goldie, Crust, Lemon D, and they were all up for it. They all chatted to me, and they all pointed me on. Why do we do it? Why do we tell the DJs to fuck off? So I started speaking to a swearing expert. And she was amazing. She's written this great book. Apparently, if you swear, like, you are more intelligent people.
I've heard you're more honest and more real.
I spoke to linguistics experts in America and the UK. Somebody gave me the first use of fuck was George Orwell. No, the first use of fuck off was Down and Out in Paris and London by George Orwell.
Okay.
So it's all of this stuff. And then the psychologist kind of, broke it down in terms of the catharsism, and also that kind of, it's a very, very British way of kind of complimenting each other, but also not making each other feel awkward. And the minute that was explained to me, it's like, that's brilliant, because compliments don't land well with me, and I don't really know what to say. And like when he did with the intro, I'm like, oh my God, that's disarmed me.
Right, okay.
Didn't see that coming, don't know what to say, so I'll babble. But it's that kind of really polite way of just being like, you know you're good, and I know you're good, and that's wicked, but I'm not going to go up and shake your hand and make a big thing out of it. I'm just going to go, fuck you for being so good. You're so good, you don't even need my manners. And it was stuff like that. So like when I came to that conclusion, but I was making this podcast, and there was more and more stuff I wanted to add, like fuck offs around the world. I learned that in Japan, they don't really have swear words. I learned that in Portugal is really similar to the UK with fuck off with foda. Interesting. Which of course is in Brazilian as well. So Patif told me that, and it was all this stuff, and I was putting it together. Biggest rule of, any form of storytelling or journalism is taking yourself out of it. Unless there's an important role, why, so if you were making a documentary about your experiences, then you would bring yourself into it, because, like this, all your questions have come off your own experience.
A reflection. I tried to kind of reflect before I ask you the question. The Lakeway article, before we get into the Lakeway article, I want to get back to something that you said, and I get, you say that you have a complicated relationship with your own writing, and UKF loved it. So I guess it's like your writing voice woke up for a moment and said, yo, I'm still fucking here.
I think so. It's really weird, because I think because I've been writing for so long, I feel like I've written everything. I've written every combination of every description or everything, any pun or anything. I've done it before and I've done it better. Or somebody else has done it better and done it before. And I was just like, oh man, I just get frustrated with me as a writer, and quite often I'm trying to do way too much in too much of a smaller space. So I'd had quite a lot of difficulties with some magazine articles. Like I did one on Welsh electronic music, and I was asked to try and bring in as much as I could, much history in as many genres as I could in 5,000 words. And I did 50 interviews. It was another situation like the Fuck Off podcast in that way, where it's just too much. I couldn't squeeze it in. And then I just couldn't see the wood for the trees. And even now, if I was presented with that, I wouldn't be able to. And I can't look at that article. It got a lot of hate. It got a lot of interest as well from all the people who weren't included and stuff like that. I wanted to include hard dance. I wanted to include the queer ballroom scene. I wanted to include all of these different things, but there were other things that I couldn't, because you just couldn't. And I've had it with so many articles, and it's just like, do you know what? I much prefer talking. I like, kind of editing things. So as a writer, I've kind of moved further and further away from that kind of style of writing. But then sometimes when I'm in the right mood and I'm in the right headspace and I've got the right vision, I can write. And it was the first album that we were releasing on One More Thing. It had kind of been gifted to me really by different recordings. Dexter's label, which has now gone to bed for a little while, and we tried to shop the album to bigger labels, but Lakeway is a maverick and it was just too much for other labels. So, and he had really bad experiences with other labels, and he'd had some really bad health stuff, and we started hanging out and we were working out how to do the album. I'd met his parents and I'd come down. I'd spent the day with him in Exeter.
Lovely.
We'd recorded a mix. And his mum had actually said to me, just like, whatever it is you're doing, because she's like, I'm 20 years older than him or 17 years older than him and about the same age younger than his parents. I'm slap bang in the middle. So I get along with them just as well as I do with him. And his mum just said, like, whatever you're doing, carry on doing it, because he's really switched on. He's really happy. He's engaged. And it was like, go on. And I was driving back and I was kind of formulating things. And then I had this idea of, right, and we filmed this interview of us driving, but there was the holder of the camera and the mic was clicking and clacking and it was all distorted. It wouldn't have made a good piece of content, but what he was saying was great. So like, well, maybe I could turn this into a road trip thing. And I was actually writing it for somebody else's magazine. Like somebody had said, just write anything, maybe about time you spent with him. And I'd written this thing and halfway through, I was like, this has got to go on UKF. And like for anybody watching who doesn't know, like I edited UKF for 8 years. And that was a real, like, I am incredibly grateful to Luke Hood, who founded the brand. He's new generation, I think he's just in his early 30s now, like set up UKF when he was a teenager and really changed the game. And he had more faith than I've got in myself as an editor. And I had freedom that no one else in that company will ever have again in terms of letting artists onto the site. There was I didn't have to check with anybody. And to come back into music journalism and go from magazines to digital and learn. And it was a great time as well. It was like the EDM time. Algorithms weren't so tight. So you could post something on Facebook page, sit on Google Analytics and watch thousands of people coming onto the site. So and it's not like that now. It's quite the opposite. But it was just amazing. It was really, that was my making. UKF was my making because I was dealing with a lot of younger artists. It was a new generation soundtrack. I was finding my voice and I became Mr. Drum and Bass through daily articles on that. It led to so many other things. But then it got to a point where in my early 40s where it's like, this is a young person's chair.
Right.
And preferably not a guy's chair as well. Like, come on, I need to get the hell out of there and set up my own thing. Who can we bring in? And it felt like the right time. It felt like the right time for me to go. So, but in the process of going through my own shitty mental health and paranoias, I had made it a lot more toxic than it was. So I didn't want anything to do with that website or that brand for a little while. I had to completely remove myself from it, which was all my own doing. Also my inability to engage with more corporate aspects of the industry. But it was totally my own doing. So I didn't want anything to do with that brand for a little while because I wanted to reestablish myself and work out like, okay, if I'm not the voice of a big brand and I got my own brand, what is that voice? Who am I? What do I want to do? And all of these kind of things. But it got to this point, it was like, I'm just about to release this album, which people will be able to listen to in 20, 30, 40, 50 years time and go like, this is unique. This is, it's an amazing body of work. And I wish I was wearing it because to take off my top now, I've got a t-shirt with the cover on it. And we got this wicked artist so here's a really cool little link. The guy who did the artwork, Murney, who's like a street artist and really political, he used to be a PR and he was sending me Lakeway's earliest releases 10 years before when Lakeway was this cute little 17-year-old boy. And I was this jaded kind of
threads connecting, isn't it?
Totally. And we didn't realise until I was like, how about having Murney do the artwork? And he's like, I'm sure. And then I was talking to Murney and Murney was like, I used to do Lakeways, I used to PR Lakeways stuff. I'd send you his singles. So to have that little link, but to have that kind of responsibility of like releasing this great big body of work on the label, it was humongous. It was like, what ways can we advertise this? What stories can we tell? How can we make the world know? And I still wish more people listen to it, and hopefully they will over time. Music is there forever, isn't it? It's not just there for, oh shit, we haven't got 1,000 views on this straight away. Even though that is something that Lakeway really obsesses over, and a lot of artists do because it's the only metric of seeing whether people listen.
That's right.
And as I was writing this, and it was just like, like we became friends really quickly. That was the road trip where we realised that we'd been talking on the phone, we'd met a few times, we both knew that we could work with each other and shared a few similarities. But then like he's like riffing off loads of Simpsons references, and straight away it's like, oh wow, okay, you're into that. The years between us didn't make a difference. We both have very similar ways of dealing with our mental health and feeling the way that we do within society and stuff like that. So it's like, wow. And very, very quickly, and now it feels like I've known him for so much longer than this year. And that's another thing that really keeps me in music. And something that my dad observed is like, how have you, like when in the previous generations before ours, you made your friends in school, college, then you're in work, and then you had your family and you didn't really have friends, it almost seemed. You might see people in a pub or people here and there. But you didn't make new friends, where I love the fact that, I've met you in the last few years, and I would consider you a friend. Scartip, we've mentioned, Lakeway, and it's these like music, because of the context in which we've met and the fact that we're creatively collaborating, it takes away formalities.
That's right.
And that is another thing that keeps me here. I'm the most informal person ever. I hate formalities, can't stand them. So many of them are rooted in awful traditions of colonialism and stiff upper lip and, like upper classes.
That's a whole other podcast, isn't it?
Totally. So the informality and that ability to just be very, very quickly in a creative situation and realize, like, see each other's souls and go, we're peas in a pod.
That's
we're brothers, we're siblings, we're mates. Like, this is going to work.
And that's exactly what I took for it, Dave, and I know you're no good with compliments, but I'm going to tell you, you wrote from a place of empathy. It was about your way of seeing people, their honesty and that real human curiosity, it's...
Brilliant. Because I wrote that, and then the next morning, my partner was like, you were up really late last night, like later than usual. And normally I work until about 2 or 3 in the morning. It was about 4:30. And people were starting to get up in the house for the morning, and I was just going to bed. And I got up a few hours later to take my daughter to school. She's like, you're up really, really late. I was like, yeah, I was writing an article for UKF. She's like, do they know? Like, well, you haven't been comfortable saying that brand for a while.
For a long time.
It's like, they don't even know that. I'm going to send it. And big up, like, Whiskey Kicks, the editor now, my predecessor. She's amazing. And she has, she's been able to take the mantle and what I'd done and develop it even more and make it even more contemporary and transparent and accountable and all of these great things. Sent it to her. I was like, look, this is a bit of I've gone out on a limb here. I've written this article. I've written it very much for you. And I've even called myself the ex-editor as you know, like in that intro. And she got back within a couple of hours going, oh my God, I love this. And they tried to pay me. She tried to pay me. I was like, no, like this is promotion for the album that I'm trying to promote and sell. Like this is, I don't want payment for this. Maybe I should have taken it, but money is not a driver for me.
And that's what makes you, Dave. That's why we're all here with you. Deer Hill. I attended your album launch, Deer Hill's album launch recently at, is it FOMO in Brick Lane? Is that right? An invitation only event, and I was very honoured to be there, so thank you. And it struck me deeply. It was profoundly cathartic, a meditation that opened me up. Oh my God, I was like, whoa, creatively and emotionally. And that evening perfectly amplified authentic care and meaningful action in the industry, deliberate, thoughtful steps that nurture creativity, just like what you've been talking about, and most importantly, well-being.
Yeah.
Experiences like that, Dave, reaffirm why I created Bare Frequencies, why we're here today, to provide a platform for genuine connection, real stories, and tangible support for creatives. Do you see yourself, please say yes, exploring more projects like this in the future to support artists and communities?
100%. So DL came to me through a show that I do called The Demo Drop. And I started that as just a little test to see if I could stream, if it was feasible from my little office and stuff. And I was streaming from Sun and Bass, which was an amazing invitation to do 1 year. So I thought, well, I'll test it out. Ask people for demos in a similar way to how you came to me with Peggy. Loads of people sent some great stuff. I did originally want some team members on the call with me, but they were actually broadcasting a Zoom call and sharing music, had different privacy things. So basically it overcomplicated things. So it's like, it's just going to be me. And, you know, I've got to really talk about this music and I've got to be critical where I have to be. I can't just be like, that's great. And in fact, we had Liam on as a guest and he doesn't like being technical. I was more technical than him. And I'd be like pulling people up on things and he was like, I just thought it banged. Normally it's me being like that and a technical person being more technical. But at one point quite early on in the streams, Jan Deerhill had popped up. I can't remember who he'd come through, or a lot of people, I'd mentioned it on Vision. And so people had come through Vision Radio onto it. And there was one song and I was like listening, I was like, this sounds like Daft Punk, this sounds like Stefan Bodzin. I was listening and he was in the chat going like, it's like you're looking into my musical collection. Like, before I knew it, he started supporting me on Patreon. I was like, wow, okay. And that's usually a sign of, that's a sign that someone gives a shit and they can see my predicament for what it is. Like they can see, oh my God, this guy's out on a limb. He's not asking for money. He's not even asking for subscribers. Take my £5 a month, mate. So he did that and he sent me this really lovely message and instantly I felt like, right, we've got a connection. So he started sending other bits and all of it was like, this is bonkers. This is like hearing Daft Punk's Discovery for the first time. And it was going in so many different directions. So I was like, no, can we have a like private Zoom call? And we were sharing some ideas. So I was like, I think you've got an album here. And at the time I had somebody I was mentoring and he was on the calls as well. And we were just sharing ideas. And it was something that, somebody well known in drum and bass had said on a documentary, it's this quote, which I really, really loved. And it's like, so what if my tune is 22 minutes long? I'm going to sit you down and make you fucking listen. And I don't always agree with what this person always says. Right. But I love it. I love the cadence and the rhythm of it. And it's like, and as we were talking, I was like, I just want people to sit down and fucking listen. I was like, well, why don't we? And so we come up with these different ideas. And at the time then, this is where I was learning more and more about Deer Hill. It's like, well, look, I've got some budget. Like, how much would £1,000 get us for a private viewing? And I was like, wow, okay, so we've got some budget. And then developing an event then with somebody else's money is even scarier than doing it with your own money. But, you know, he's an Oscar-winning graphics expert and, you know, visual artist. That's his day job. He's Swiss, so you know, Swiss have a much better economy than we do here. He's got some money, he wanted to invest in it, so it's like, wow, okay, let's what should we do? How should we visually portray it? Because there is this a night called Pitch Black Playback. I can never say it quickly. By a really old colleague called Ben Goodmorey, and he does it like he'll have like Dark Side of the Moon or something like that, and everyone's sitting in a cinema. Totally lights off, just coming through. And that was the type of experience I wanted to create. But Deer Hill took it to another level and he was like, well, how about I make a visual version? I've already been making these little videos. Why don't I make a full visual? I was like, have you got enough time? We're releasing the album in 6 weeks' time. Yeah, I can do it. Brilliant. I mean, he worked right to the edge and he had a holiday booked with his family. That's why he couldn't come to the screening and I got everybody to cheer and sent him the video. And it was one of those last minute things. It's like, right, I don't want to put this online. So I thought of everybody I knew in London and the surrounding area who might be interested and knew would appreciate what I'm doing. Oh, it's brilliant. So you were definitely on that list. And that was suddenly then to do like an invite only. You had been personally invited. When people started to pull out, a couple of days before because they were ill, there was that people pull out of things, they can't always commit, and that's totally understandable. It's like, oh my God, like I can't put this online now. I can't make this suddenly free. So it's like suddenly, and then like, these things have a way of working out. And Annie, who's an amazing DJ of the new generation, she called up and she's like, I got a few people who want to come, like Paul Inside Info. It's like, yeah, bring as many as you want. We can always put more seats in. They want to seem desperate. But I was like, and she, Sonic, one of my artists, he brought a load of other friends as well. They saved the day and there wasn't many seats left, really, was there? Fantastic. It was great. And it was great. And to be able to do that and to be able to get everybody to just sit down and listen to music, no one was looking at their phones. I even said, I had a disclaimer at the start saying like, because I don't think I could sit down for the whole thing. I'd probably be on my phone or getting up. I'm a fidgeter, I'm hyperactive. So it's like, if anybody wants to come and talk and you've come here to talk, it's more like, because I knew some people had come to see me and it's like, this is an opportunity to give my demo to Dave or whatever. And I was aware of that. So it's like, if you want to come and talk to me in the bar, I'll be setting up. I won't be sitting, like come and if you want to fidget, because I'm not your boss. Like, I don't want to be strict. So to have that, but then to see that no one got up, like one person went to the loo, and I was just at the back taking photos, and Chris, who runs Hospital Records, Chris Goss, he was sitting at the back, he'd sneaked in quite late, and he just gave me a look and give me a thumbs up. It's like goosebumps. No, it's like, wow. And to have that, so I do want to do more stuff like that. And then afterwards to showcase some of my artists, and they all played like their all production sets, and people are milling around and talking. At the very end of the night, I was in the hotel with Liam Lakeway, and I was saying, there's nothing I would change. I can't, even my deepest critic up there, even the noisiest gremlin, was like, I'm going to have a night off, mate. I'm going to let you enjoy this. And I was like, I wouldn't change anything. He was like, I wish you hadn't got half the room out, emptied half the room to push your car. Because obviously, as you know, you gave me the jump start and bought jump leads for me. I'd left the lights on, so I really wanted to get that problem resolved before we left the building. I didn't want that to be an issue at 10:30 at night. And obviously, when you ask a room full of mainly men if someone can push a car, anyone's out there. I can push a car. And I mean, the footage of it is amazing. We did a 3-point turn and everything. You can't jump start a Toyota because you need your foot on the clutch to start the ignition in a Toyota. But to jump start a car, you need your foot off the clutch to disengage the... No, you need it... Yeah, you need the foot off the clutch to engage the gearbox with the engine. So I'd emptied the room. I went back over the footage, and there's a point. He's just starting, and you can see me walking around. I hand him a drink, and then I get a load of people, and half the room, like at one point, he's only playing to 3 people. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. But these things happen.
But I think that was all, that was part of the night, you know, it was supposed to, and it was captured, and it was fun, and it was great.
The connections that were made were amazing. Like my Polish friend, Yannick Evergreen, like he came, another guy, Primal, like he just responded really nicely to something I said about him in the demo drop. And I thought, ooh, he seems enthusiastic and knows what I'm up to. Can you come to London tomorrow? And he did. He got a Flixbus down and booked a hotel.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm now releasing his music.
That's that whole unpredictable... The whole predictability thing.
Totally. And the one thing that I will, because I met up with a friend recently, she's a young DJ, she's actually a daughter of a really dear friend of ours who we've sadly lost. And it's amazing to reconnect with her. Last time I saw her, she was 14. Oh, wow. And now she's a DJ. She's like 27, killing it up in Leeds. Like, Seren, if you're watching this, hold tight. But I was telling her about it, and she was like, I've been to a few listening parties. Didn't they're a bit boring, really. Just everybody sitting around. It's a bit stuffy and a bit like middle class. And I was like, oh, do you know what? Like, okay, like, no, it was different for us because it was an industry thing. There was talking afterwards and DJ sets. But it was like, I was really, really into that idea. But the perspective is, it's like, well, no, this is dance music. Like, and we're all kind of sitting there like, well, what am I supposed to be doing? So if I did it, I would want to make sure that I'm involved in other aspects of art to stimulate as well. So it's not just people sitting there kind of stroking their chins.
Yeah, of course.
But when I look back on the footage and I see all these people who, you know, there's either friends or friends of friends or friends of friends of friends all bumping into each other and talking. There wasn't one person in the room who I didn't say hello to and thank you to. And I found that very difficult. And it was like, because there was a chance that I might have DJ'd as well. One of the DJs almost didn't turn up. And they were all like, you play? It's like, no, this is, I am the curator and the host and the person responsible for this. Like, I don't want to do the DJ thing on this one. It's down to you guys. I want to showcase you guys, and I want to be there and say thank you to people. And there was, one or two guests had additional requirements, so making sure that they were cool and they felt comfortable. And I was really happy with it. So if ever I can, and I'll use this as an invitation to any like visual artist or anything who want to get involved and want to complement the music and do something and create a space.
Absolutely.
Let's collaborate. Collaborate. You know, there's dance music.
I'm first on the list.
Let's collaborate after I've collaborated.
It was a wonderful experience. It was completely different, and I just loved it, Dave. Gorgeous crowd.
And I think because like, raving patterns have changed and they had to, like they did, things were different in the 60s to what they were in the 90s when I came through. So things have to be different now, and people don't want to do what we did before. So we have to find different solutions.
Absolutely.
Electronic music exists in every space. So it's not just for DJs. No. It's not just for people to lose their minds to. Deer Hill's album is a great example of that. And one of the most popular tracks is one called Return to Meridia, which is just pianos. It's just contemporary classical, really. So to be able to release music like that is amazing. That is so arty and cool. But
It was the whole well-being thing about it, Dave, and how cathartic it felt. Because I'll say the first 5 minutes, I was kind of like, because I'm a fidgeter as well, and I'm an overthinker. But once I got into it, it was like, whoa, this is, yes, I'm having this. Absolutely.
along with 30 odd other people
It
in the
was
one
brilliant.
room.
It was a beautiful crowd, gorgeous crowd. I just hit the microphone.
Yeah.
But yeah, more of that, please.
And I think working in the industry, there are two types of people. There are the people who can sit there and listen and just share it with people. And then there's other people in the industry who just wanted a job in music or media because it's cool. And when you're in a studio or in a space like that, you can see them. They don't know what to do with themselves because suddenly they've actually got to listen.
That's right.
And connect with their feelings with the music instead of just being there and, chasing things or sending off emails or being that kind of busybody who's got a job in the industry. It's actually, and you can spot it a mile off, there are people who can sit there and just zone out and listen to music and share that moment with people.
Absolutely.
And they can feel comfortable in their own skin because they're not even in their own skin. They're in the ether with the frequencies.
That's right.
to be a bit of a hippie with it.
Frequencies.
Yeah, totally. And they're sharing that moment. And it was, I do come from an era where we would go on a Saturday morning to a record shop. My mate would buy that record. I would buy this record. We'd go back to one of our houses and tape each other's record. And we'd listen to the record. Sometimes we'd be a bit gutted because it wasn't as good as we thought it would be. Other times it'd be like, wow, this is like mind blowing. This is the best thing I've ever heard in my life.
Absolutely.
And that's really, really exciting. Like to go back to that kind of feeling because people don't have that now.
Right.
We have different things vying for our attention. So to create that space on a Friday night.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I've realised, Dave, that my creativity doesn't have to come from chaos or constant output. And lately I've been arriving from the quiet moments, the homeschooling, being in nature, being intentional with my energy, not trying to overdo everything at once. How do you stay creatively fulfilled and true to yourself while also showing up emotionally for the people you love?
This is such a tricky one. So first of all, the chaos and the constant output, they are my middle names. I am complete, je suis chaos. Like I am just complete, like all of the time, even when I'm trying to be ordered and scheduled and organized, other ideas come in and that constant output. So I can completely relate. Those words really stood out to me when I read that question. And I think there will be some people who will say, well, he definitely does show up. Whether that's, certainly my partner and my kids, I'm there. I'm always there for them, unless I'm on the road, but I have to be on the road. I think what's interesting is like prior to lockdown, when I'm working from home, you'd say like you work from home and people are like, oh, you're just watching telly or you're watching porn all day or whatever. It's like, mate, if I had the time, I wouldn't even spend it on that because I'd be too busy doing something else that I want to do, which is more fun in my own opinion. But that ability to switch. So I'm upstairs, I'm interviewing somebody really important. I'm doing this, I'm doing a stream, I'm doing that. I'm writing a script for something. And I hear like Dad or Dave, like I come back down, instant dad mode, instant partner mode. So for those super close to me, like literally my partner and my children, I am there unless I'm away. And I have to be away to be stimulated. So lockdown made everybody realize what a discipline that is. Like normally you've got your commute or your walk in between, your drive or whatever to decompress from work mode to family mode. But because this is all encompassing for me anyway, I just pushed those thoughts to the back of my mind. And certainly when they were toddlers, you're down on your knees building Lego straight away. And it's like, okay. But then there are other people who I am not there for and I wish I was. Like, I don't get back to messages from my own family. Like sometimes, my mum will send me a worried message like, oh, I saw you post about this. You're talking about this on social media. Are you okay? Is everything okay? And I'll read it and think, oh, I've got to get back to mum. And I'm too much in the moment. And, for every person that I am responsive to, there are lots of people who I'm not responsive to. And in fact, you sent me an email about doing a collaboration around this and perhaps doing like a little kind of DJ thing or something afterwards. I missed that email. And I think I must have read it. It's like, that's cool. But then saw something else. There are some people who I don't even know why. Like, we've been talking for a while and suddenly something will happen. And then I'll see an email from them. But I think, oh, I'll get back to that later. And I don't. And there's like these, sometimes I think it's self-sabotage. Like sometimes I think it's a block. Sometimes it's just overthinking. It's like, right, I'm going to have to think about how I'm going to respond to that person, but that's going to involve that and that. And then I might say, oh no, put that aside, move on, focus on what I need to. So I don't always, I am creatively fulfilled all of the time. I'm never short of ideas, ever. I'm never bored. But it does come at a cost of sometimes even my best friends can't quite get hold of me all of the time. There are people I do show up for. There's a very, very, very dear friend of mine who I love to bits, Dan, who he's recovered now, but he was fighting cancer for some time, the worst type as well, and he's through it. And that did show to me that I could be there for somebody. But even then, sometimes it'll go 2 weeks. I'd be like, shit, I haven't spoken to Dan. Then I'd be in his pocket every day, like, you okay, anything I can do. But I proved to myself that I can, but I think like, kind of there are personality types where if you're away from people, they're not in your mind anymore because you're focused so much on something else. And I think that's my problem. It's why I'm able to go away for so long. Sometimes, and then, like I wouldn't, like I know a lot of mums, like they couldn't leave their kids for, a night sometimes. And they've just that disconnection would be too much for them. Whereas I don't enforce it, but my brain will just shut off. So it's like, right, I'm away for a week. I'm over the other side of the world.
Right.
I don't even talk to them on the phone because 1, time zones, 2, I'm normally in a noisy place. 3, they're missing me or whatever. So it's a bit of a jarring thing. So I can do that thing where I'm just on the road mode. When I get back, it all comes flooding back. Okay. It's like, but like when lockdown happened, and me and my son especially, it's very much like me and my brother. So we will bicker and we're at each other. But that's a part of our dynamic and our dialogue. Yeah. There was one point where he said, like, Mum, when's Dad going to go away again? So, oh, God. So, sometimes there is such an amazing mum in the house that I am able to be flexible and do the creative things that I need to because I know I've got the support. So all of that is mainly down to having an amazing family who I am always there for, unless I'm away, unless I'm not physically able to be. But there are a lot of people, and if there are anybody who's watching this, then it means that they don't hate me enough to not watch this. But I know there are people out there going like, he never gets back to me. I've sent him this, I've sent him that, I've asked him this, I've asked him that. And it's not enough hours in the day, but not enough concentration cells in this engine up here. I need a firmware upgrade.
I think, I stepped away 2 years ago. I just knew that I needed to step away from it, Dave. And I think in those 2 years, was it 2 years? The best part of 2 years, my phone stopped completely. And it was amazing. Yeah. It was absolutely amazing. Jake has taught me a lot about patience and perspective than any part of the music industry ever could. We're just a wee 2 unit. It's just him and I. He's taught me to slow down, to be present, to find beauty in the wee in-between moments. He's reminded me that growth doesn't happen on demand. It unfolds when you create the right environment, and it took me a long while to create the right environment, but we're there. He brings me back to wonder, curiosity and honesty, qualities that fuel everything I create, and he teaches me grace.
Yeah.
What have your children taught you about perspective or patience? Lessons that the industry never ever could.
This is such a big question. And I think this is the crux of our chat here, I think, really. I didn't think I'd enjoy being a dad so much.
Right.
And I am the most impatient person. I take a lot of THC in order to extend my patience and to stop me from, like, if somebody doesn't finish their sentence quick enough, I'm like, come on.
I'm in,
With kids, you just can't. So they taught me that, like, that just kicks in almost, like you don't realise that you've got that coding until you have kids, and you have to be patient. You just have to be patient. And sometimes, especially in the really, really, really early days when you're covered in food or sick or poo and you're screaming and there's crying and there's all sorts going on, and you're like, what the heck? That's where the patience is really kind of kicks in. And luckily, again, like being in a really, really strong relationship, we've been able to support each other in that way. But I think like the kids, it's like holding up a mirror, isn't it? But sometimes the mirror shows the opposite.
That's right.
Like, and it's made me realise how wonderful their mum is. Like I see their mum's attributes in them. It makes me realise that I was brought up in a very, very different way, and I love my parents to bits. I don't hold them to any faults or anything, but when I grew up, there was a lot of mind your own business, don't talk about that, stop being stupid, you know, come on, grow up, like that kind of like stop crying, come on, sort yourself out. And they would talk to me that I had like, there was nothing was off the table, but it was very, very different. And the example that I kind of think of is my dad, like I was always asking him about smoking. It was always like, why are you smoking? What's going on? Like you tell it was forbidden. And that excited me. So I wanted to smoke. So I'd ask questions, says, mind your own business, because they knew that what they were doing is killing themselves. They didn't know how to deal with that, and they didn't know how to accept. You know, and both of them have given up now. My dad gave up for a while, and then on holiday, we saw some red squirrels, and he was like, look, red squirrels. And he had a cigarette in his hand. And I was just like, I didn't even look at the red squirrels because I was just like, shit, Dad's smoking again. I wouldn't have dared say anything because I would have been told off. I would have been told to mind my own business, or I felt I would have been, you know. Now my kids know that I used to smoke. If my son says to stop, you know, if my son saw me smoking, and he never would, not tobacco anyway, but he would kick my ass. He would not let me, and I would let him. And I think that's the difference. So what I've learned is that my generation are bringing up kids in a different and more open way. And if my kids decide to have kids, they will be even more open, and less would be, you know, there's nothing swept under the carpet. So I think I've learned a lot about my own upbringing and the things that I want to change and make it open. And, you know, I don't blame my parents for anything. It's just the way that they were brought up as well. They were brought up by, you know, war families. And it's all generational, and everything changes. And I think things do get better with every generation in terms of being able to like accept things and talk about things and stuff like that. So what I've learned off my kids is that I can change, you know, like I had a different upbringing, and I've learned what's important to me is being more honest, and that kind of, it's what my parents were hinting at. Well, I was in trouble so much. We'd have to sit down and discuss things a lot. I would get myself into trouble. I would lie and cause problems. I would get caught like out and about at 4 a.m. Police would be at the door. We had to deal with things because of my behavior. Whereas with the kids, everything is on the table all of the time. And I think like the best thing, and I've thought about this loads since you sent over the questions, was I've learned to be myself. Like when I look back at the photos of me when I first became a dad, and it was like, right, I got to sort myself out. I got to sort like, you know, I'm going to wear a nice jumper and I try and grow my hair, stop wearing silly hats. So like, I didn't have any of the, like I had a few little tattoos. And there's about a year or two of me just looking like a very boring 30-odd-year-old. And slowly but surely, as I became more and more of a dad and I got tattoos for my kids, and I started to become in front of the camera and be much more confident about who I was, I stopped masking so much. I stopped trying to be this kind of like stereotypical middle-aged person settling down and having kids. And I'm way more myself. To a lot of people's annoyance in my family, sometimes I don't know how to behave. We'll be in a very grown-up situation and I will do something stupid because I know the kids are going to laugh. And that's way more important to me than anything else. Like,
absolutely.
We got like literally told off in a bathroom centre the other day, like, because I was trying to engineer a situation where all of us were sitting on a toilet looking at each other. Because when does that ever happen in normal life? And then we couldn't find one for my partner. So I thought she was behind me and I turned around and was like, that's okay. You can shit in the bath. It was some random lady in a big dress and she did not like it. But a member of staff had to come and say, is everything all right here? So, but that's just me completely, like, this me just being me, no mask, no anything, no like trying to be all sensible or strict. And maybe that's the wrong thing. Maybe that's irresponsible parenting, and maybe the kids should know. But then they already know what is right and what is wrong, but they know what's having a laugh is, and we weren't breaking anything or anything. So then my kids have allowed me to just drop a lot of the masks, a lot of the things I was carrying, like trying to be the guy. Like years ago, they never knew that version of me anyway, but there's always that, or trying to be better, trying to be sensible, trying to be what society might expect of someone of my position, where it's like, well, nothing else that I do is normal or typical. So just be yourself. And so my kids have allowed me and given me the thumbs up on that. It does mean that they trust their mum a hell of a lot more with certain things. But they know if they need me, I'm there. I'm just likely to say something stupid or turn it into a game.
But that's great. That's how it should be, you know. And I think, you know, I think for a long time, the only person that ever saw the real me was Jake. You know, because I could be myself around him, you know.
Yeah.
And for a long time, you know, I wore the masks, and then I think since losing my wee nephew last year, it was just like a part of him says, Aunt Shona, I'm taking that part of you with me. You're coming with me, you know. And now, but it all came for growing up, Dave. It all came for, I mean, it's like what you said, you know. I know we all rant about our parents, but they didn't know, you know. It was all passed down through generations, you know. And I'm just trying to find a better way, you know, for us all to. I think sitting down and being honest and talking about things is how it should be.
Definitely.
You know, and especially, you know, the repair. I think that's something we never had as kids growing up, you know, because they didn't know how to repair, you know, it was just how it was. So I'm making sure with Jake, if he gets me in a bad day or I'm having a bit of a meltdown, you know, that we go back, and that is the most important thing, that repair. You know, I'm feeling like this today because of, but it's not your fault.
Yeah.
That's it, you know.
Yeah, and definitely knowing that. And then like seeing the effect that has. So I always take my daughter to an art class on a Wednesday, but it does mean that I pick her up from school, come back, I've got an hour to work, and then I take her to an art class, and then I'm working in the car, and then I take her back. And I've been quite stressed in that hour. I'm still trying to finish loads of stuff. And she was having trouble with her science homework, and her mum was out doing sports with her brother. And she laboured over a science thing. I was like, oh, you could have said. And she was like, I know that hour's really important too. And I was like, oh my God, but I was really grateful of that. Instead of feeling selfish, like, oh, I've taken away your homework time. It's like, wow, you've shown, you know, real empathy towards my own situation. And you're aware that getting these lifts to places has a knock-on effect. So you've decided to wait. And that's proof that you can lose it a little bit and explain why.
Absolutely.
And, you know, they see me getting stressed and flustered. I get flustered over the smallest of things, the big things. You can't do anything about them. So that's you know, it's the little things. And, oh my God, they wind me up so much. And the kids see that, but then they see how I gum through it. I'm able to laugh about it 10 minutes later, but I need to let out that and then come down. And without letting out that I'm always so, you know, and it's letting the kids sort of find that way as well.
That's right. Know? So Jake says to me the other day, you know, I think it was getting home in the car the other night, something happened, I can't remember, and I got a bit stressed, but he says, Mum, I know now that it's just how you are, you know, but it's that I'm safe, it's not my fault, you know. And I think because I talk to him about things, you know, and we have that, I think, you know, the reason I pace myself and the reason why I keep going is my why, you know, why I'm here today, you know, with this podcast. And I think it's simple. The purpose is to create spaces where, you know, these young people come through and they can feel themselves fully, Dave, you know, where every feeling is welcome. Everything's welcome. And I think when you teach a child that all their feelings are welcome, you give them permission You give them permission of never having to abandon themselves to be loved. And that to me is what unconditional acceptance really, really looks like. How do you nurture that emotional safety in your own family or the people closest to you, in the sense that all of who they are is welcome?
I think like I want to give my partner, I'm purposefully not saying their names
No, of
because
course,
they
that's
don't
fine.
have an internet life like I do.
Uh-huh.
But my partner
I respect
is
that.
amazing. And through breastfeeding, actually, was one of the most important, emotionally like securing things that we could ever do as a family. And it had such a big impact that my partner then went on to help mentor people who were having difficulties themselves with breastfeeding. It changed a lot in our life. You know, like for a while, I was feeling like, well, what's my place as a father? You know, I want to be able to feed. I want to be able to take on these. But as she pointed out one time, we were in a park and there was this guy and he was just there with a bottle in the baby's mouth, and there's nothing wrong with bottle feeding whatsoever. It was just, this is the lifestyle choice that my partner had decided to make.
Absolutely.
And it did mean then, you know, I had to find other ways. And my ways was like when she needed to just let her boobs settle down,
of course.
I would be there to calm the kids down, the babies down as much as I could as a father. But there are lots of other ways to nurture that relationship. So most of their emotional security comes from their mum. And she just went into warrior mode with it. And it was so beautiful to see. So there's that. And then for me, it's like nothing is off the table. If you want to talk about anything, if you want to behave in a certain way, if you want to say something, nothing is bad, nothing is offensive, nothing is the wrong question. I never want them to feel like I did when I was trying to ask questions about drugs. Drugs fascinated me as a kid. And it was because, like, so I can remember the very first conversation I had. It was Ian Botham was kicked off the Australia tour.
Right.
And I was like, well, he's been kicked off for smoking. And yeah, because I was always trying to ask mum and dad about smoking. And my mum said, he's smoking something else, makes you feel a bit different, makes you think differently. And I would have been 6 or 7. I'd have to look up the date, but I was young, and instantly a light bulb went. It was like, I'm interested in that. That sounds like something I would like to try. Even as a little kid, like, you know, if the kids ever, they don't tend to ask that many questions. They're not as exposed to street stuff. I grew up in Cardiff. Not in a particularly rough area, but it was a rough school, and we were just on the outskirts of rougher areas, so we would be involved with rougher kids and became slightly rougher ourselves. But you'd get into all of this stuff, whereas kids don't go out and play in the same way now. And we provide them with so many things to do and sports and creative stuff. They're not out and about loitering and getting up to trouble, but it means they're not as exposed to things. So they don't ask as many questions, but they know that everything is always like there to be asked, and they would be treated, even when they were just learning to speak, could speak to them like a grown up. And I'd talk to them about the budget, but you know, anything they want. And I think that, you know, gives them that emotional support, that they don't feel afraid to say anything. They don't feel afraid that they're too much or behaving in a way that they shouldn't, because everything is fine and you'll never get told off for it.
I think it was really interesting a few weeks ago, Jake and I can't remember what it was, but something had happened. We'd been out doing a wee bit of shopping and we come back in and he went a bit quiet on me. And I was like, right, okay. And I says to him, what's happening here? I says, I'm getting the vibe, I'm feeling the energy. And he says, well, Mum, he says, I don't want you to take offence to this. And I said, right, okay.
What's coming?
He says to me, he says, but you said something earlier. He says, I think you're a bit of a hypocrite. He says to me, but I was taken aback, but I was really happy that he could say that to me, Dave.
Yeah.
You know,
definitely,
and I was like, I would never have dreamt of saying that to my mother, you know, but I was so proud of myself as well that I'm clearly doing something for him to be able to talk to me like that, you know?
Yeah.
Whereas I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I couldn't have done that as a child. I've come to see the different parts of me, the mother, the creator, the protector, and they don't really compete anymore. Each one gives the other something it needs. Do you ever feel the different parts of yourself, the creative, the journalist, the father, you know, pulling in different directions, or do you find that they now feed and support each other?
Yeah, There are times where I feel like I just don't have any time and I've taken on too much and I've always taken on too much, whether that's my own projects or actual kind of paying clients. And I'm just there like a rabbit in the headlights, like, oh my God. And then it's taken them a bit longer to go to bed, or it's taken them a bit longer, or it's taken it, and I've got another 4 or 5 hours of work I want to do before I go to sleep. And in my head, I'm screaming like, oh, for crying out loud. But very seldom do I let that come out, because it's like, hang on, like that's not their problem. They're having more difficulty settling for whatever reason. So there are those kind of things where, because the house is where I work and I'm a dad and everything, like it can be all on top. But I think when everything's running smoothly, and let's say I've gone away for like a day or two and I've done something cool like this and come away inspired, and I've met people or a job opportunity has come up, and then I come back, I'm feeling more peaceful because I've scratched that itch. Now I'm here to be a dad. And then, you know, sometimes I might have to go like, oh, right, okay, this is Liam. He's going to want to know what we're going to do tomorrow. 5 minutes, kids. And, you know, there are points where I don't have my phone. I leave my phone up in the office and we're watching a film or we're doing whatever. And that is out of my mind completely. And it doesn't matter. Like sometimes there'll be that nagging voice like, oh, this could be. And you go back to your phone. It's never that exciting.
No,
it's never that exciting than watching a cool musical or something with the kids or anything. You know, like so they are at odds, but only in terms of my impatience and stuff like that. And luckily there's enough of a logic there to go like, whoa, like, yeah, okay, you might not get everything you want to do done tonight, but to be honest, you're far too ambitious with your time anyway, so deal with it. Read another chapter and enjoy yourself and stuff like that.
That's
really,
it.
I think.
I woke up at 3 o'clock this morning. This is a middle of the night thing with me, up to go to the loo. And as I come back out, Jake was coming out of his bedroom and he says, Mum, you're up? I says, yes. I says, you know, in bed yet? And he says, no. He says, Stranger Things is just starting. He says, you want to come and watch it? And I went at 3 o'clock this morning, I'm lying in bed with him watching Stranger Things.
Lush,
you know, and it was just so lovely, you know. And then when it was time finally for me to go fall back asleep, it was time to get up. And as I'm coming out to work this morning, he's just gone to his bed, Dave.
Brilliant. So what's really funny is at 2 o'clock this morning, I'd finished packing because I'm away for a couple of days. So I'd finished packing and I looked at Netflix and I saw Stranger Things and I thought, I wish I gave a monkeys about that now. But because it's moved on, it stopped for me the minute they sang the Never-Ending Story. I was like, no, that's gone cheesy. And also, like, there's one of the actors said all sorts of stuff about his ideologies, which I'm so against, I just decided, and they're all being teenagers when they're adults. And so I've gone off it and I was going to post, I wish I still gave a shit about Stranger Things. And it probably would have been about an hour before you started watching it. And I thought, why am I even, I should just chill out and have a cup of tea and go to bed. Like, I just need to settle. And I didn't. And I'm glad, because you might have seen that on social media the next morning and thought, I just had a lovely time with Jake watching that. And, you know, like these opinions don't need to be shared at 2 a.m. So I think that's beautiful that I decided to delete that and not share that stupid opinion instead of sharing it on this podcast. And you were having a lovely time. Watch it. Was it any good? Is it good?
I only watched 40 minutes and I says, Jake, I need to go to sleep. But he came through this morning. He's like, Mum, it was brilliant. But we went to the theatre. I knew it was, I've never really been into it. And I took him to the theatre. Maybe, was it last month we went to see it in the West End? And we lasted an hour and we left.
Not everything can be turned into a musical. And that's one thing that the kids have taught me, is that I actually really love musicals. I did study drama for a little while and I hated all the musical kids, like all of the, you know, singing all, like Andrew Lloyd Webber-y stuff and things like, that's bollocks, that's cheesy. But now, like, you know, kind of growing up and you go through the whole Disney thing. And now, you know, my daughter spits that back and she hates the princess thing and all of that, all those stereotypes. But for a while, like, and you're watching things like Frozen or Jungle Book or any of these and listening to all of the bits in the score that relate to other bits. And it's like, this is genius. And I've had like sessions like 3, 4 in the morning with very famous DJs sharing our favorite musical stuff. And I won't name them, but there's a few of them. It's come up in conversation. It's like, oh, you're into that as well? Oh, no. And like Back to the Future, the musical, my best day ever in my entire life. I was 44, so exactly half of 88. And they took me to see it for my birthday. And Just the best.
Aye.
The car literally flies and it turns around and it's right there in front of you. And like, you know, you wouldn't imagine Back to the Future to be a good musical, but it was.
I need to go and see it, absolutely. It was funny because we were having a conversation with Tom when he was here on Monday, and we were talking about, you know, the interest that we had outside of kind of music. We were talking about soundtracks for movies. You know, my dad was a huge Clint Eastwood fan, and it was it Morricone?
Yeah,
Ennio
yeah,
Morricone?
yeah,
You know,
Ennio Morricone.
and then the Warriors soundtrack, and you know, Midnight Express, and it was all these things that put imprints on you as a kid growing up, you know. But that's another conversation. Looking back, music really nurtured me when I was little. I played the cornet in school, and I was even in the local brass band. Oh my gosh, memories. I was part of the Scottish country dance team too. Oh
Brilliant.
my goodness. I was never picked. I was never picked for the netball or the hockey teams. I just didn't fit the archetype, Dave. I was too wee and fragile. I was the mascot running up and down the side of the pitch, distracting the other team, you know, to try and get them to. That was me. That was my character.
Brilliant.
So I wasn't built for it. But that sensitivity and that creativity was exactly what later became my gift, you know. So anything expressive, music, singing, dancing, instruments, that's where I came alive. That was my world. Thinking back to your childhood, what role did music and creativity play in shaping who you are today?
Absolutely everything. And I do think this because we pick our own narratives, don't we? And if I got in film, I'd be able to give you a narrative about film and how like dad worked out a way of pirating stuff from video shops and things. And we had an amazing collection. Our whole family would be based around the telly. So there's films, if I became an author, already said about my mum bringing books into my life. So there are these narratives that we pick, but the defining memories, the earliest memories I have are playing with my dad's records. And he was a youth worker at the time and he did discos. So he was effectively a DJ. And I'd be sitting with him and we'd be going through all the records. And then a little while later, we would listen to the top 40 and we'd have the tape ready to press pause or take it off pause to tape it. And I mean, it's so autistic. It's brilliant. Like we were writing lists. We both had our own books and we'd be writing the list of the top 40. And that was, you know, how we shared things. And then they had friends as well, Gaynor and Di, who we'd stay with quite often as we were moving around. We moved around a lot when I was up till about the age of 7. We moved around a lot. And if we were in Cardiff, we'd stay with Gaynor and Di. And Di was this amazing artist who had an art studio in the front room with every type of paint and marker and things. And they had this bucket of musical instruments, recorders, clavichords, like all of it, like guitars, bongos, bass guitars, banjos. And Dad and Di would play the guitars together. Live Aid is a really early memory for me. And good, like we'd go to the pub. Like I remember watching Queen, and I've always been a massive, massive fan of Queen.
My dad too.
And yeah, with like Queen is probably the most played band downstairs in the living room. Like Greatest Hits too. Like I know every note on air guitar, but it was massive. Music was massive. We were taken to festivals as kids.
Brilliant.
I tried a number of instruments, played the trumpet for a little while, but got cold sores.
Right.
Tried the violin, but it was uncomfortable and it was a bit stuffy. Guitar, I was all over. And now, recently, I've been able to play the guitar again. I didn't play the guitar for about 20 years.
Wow.
My partner got it restrung one Christmas because my daughter started playing it and we started going to lessons together.
Lovely, Dave.
And now we play the guitar.
Nice.
You know, we're not even father and daughter when we're playing. Like sometimes we're not even friends. We're just buzzing together. And like sharing that has been amazing, but also quite hard as well because she's getting into Nirvana and things. So one night I didn't question a lot of their lyrics, and now, you know, a lot of the lyrics is very, very, very provocative. Like the track Rape Me. Me and my daughter haven't listened to that song together. It came on just as she got out of school, and I thought, I'm going to look that up. I'm pretty sure it's kosher. Of course it is. It's very anti-rape. It's like, and it was the last single they released before Kurt Cobain shot himself, you know, like it was, and he was gung-ho that had to be released. But it's to listen to that as a father of a daughter who's getting into that. And so I told her, and I was like, look, listen to it in your own time. Because it's a banger of a tune, but I mean, that just to say those words, it's like.
And has she listened to it, Dave?
I think so. But she's part of the playlist generation, so she cherry picks her favourites, and she's got her own playlist and stuff like that. So music was absolutely everything. And then in school, that was my way of getting away from bullies. There was one particular music teacher identified in a few of us that, we should start a band and focus that wayward kind of spirit into that. And I went to be the rhythm guitarist, but I ended up actually, I couldn't play rhythm I wasn't solid enough as a rhythm player. I ended up singing. Which I didn't even know that I wanted to do, and I think it was part of me did and part of me didn't. But music was just constant. So that kind of epiphany that I had about that, by the time I reached the clubbing era and I decided, I'd kind of gone through this heavy metal period and stuff, and thought I was going to be a heavy metal singer. And like when I found dance music and could see all of these things that you could do, like it was really kind of logical that this would be my path. But yeah, I got to thank my dad. He was music obsessed. The front room was the record room. That's his room. He'd write lists and collect records and all it. Any town we went to, he'd find a record shop. And, at first me and my brother would be quite bored, but then it's like, start looking through it ourselves and just start developing your own collection. So like music was everything, absolutely everything really.
When I think back to, growing up, it was like, I remember my mum she had the LPs pinned to the wall. It was the Beatles and Elvis, and I grew up in Motown, they were real Motown, and Barbara Streisand. And there's one memory that I have that I'm really fond of, and I think back, and it was my brother and I, and you know how you used to get the words in the back of the LPs?
Yeah.
My brother and I, it was Evergreen, that was his favourite song by Barbara Streisand, and he used to sit and sing it word for word, Dave. And he was only like this size, and thinking back. And every time I hear that song now, it just takes me back to that childhood. I also had an aunt, my grand's sister. She was my great aunt. She was severely disabled. She had grand mal seizures. And she stayed with my grandmother. She'd get dressed and we'd bring her downstairs in the morning. She'd sit by the coal fire. And she had a mouth organ. And they used to give her the mouth organ and she would play. And she'd never had a lesson in her life, Dave. Never had a lesson in her life, and she could play this mouth organ.
Wow,
but that was her escape from everything that was going on, with our mental health and everything. So I remember that. Brilliant. After losing my nephew, I lost all connection to that creative part of myself. And I thought I was finished with it, like that chapter in my life had closed. And then a couple of months ago, I walked into my reallotment for the first time in 8 months. And it was like stepping into an enchanted garden of the soul. Oh. My apple and my plum trees were heavy with fruit, quietly reminding me that life presses on regardless of the heartbreak. Yeah. And that beauty blooms still. And for a moment, I was that wee lassie back in the west coast of Scotland. Oh. And it reminded me that creativity never leaves us, It just waits for us to return, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
How have life's challenges, including personal losses or difficult times, influenced the way you approach your work and relationships?
This is a really interesting one. One, I'm going to say that I'm so lucky. Both my parents are still here. I'm 47. I don't know, every 47-year-old has got both her parents around. So I'm really lucky. I have lost people close to me. I'd say the most important one is my grandma.
Dave.
I inherited some money from her. She was like fifth member of our family. She lost her husband when I was only 4, so I didn't really see my granddad very much. It certainly had an impact on how my dad saw the world and his view of things. And I think it had an impact on his mental health. I can't speak on his behalf, but she was there all the time. She was always like, kind of with my family. If my mum and dad went away, she would be with us. As we moved around, she would always be there. She was there every Christmas, and she's just amazing. Tortie grandma, because she had tortoises. And she left some money, and everything that anybody ever sees wasn't a huge amount. I probably could have been a lot wiser with it and saved it for the future, but fuck that.
Aye.
I put everything into one more thing.
Promised, aye.
And anything that anybody sees from one more thing, if people are thinking like, how's he doing that?
Your grandmother.
There's no revenue there. How's he able to put that much energy into that? My grandma. And that money's run out. So that's on my mind a lot, like, because now I need to honor myself. I need to honor everybody I've ever worked with, one more thing, but especially her, for that money not to have gone to waste. Because I remember speaking to my dad, and, people talk about manifesting things and asking the universe for stuff. And, I was trying to do that. It's like, this is bollocks. It's not them. Like, every day I wake up and that's all I'm thinking of. I don't pray because I don't believe in a God, but I respect that other people do have other belief structures, and my dad was like, well, you inherited that money. Isn't that the universe doing that? Like, do what you need to do, But when I think about loss, like, she's the biggest loss that we've experienced as a family, and also the biggest gift that I've ever had, that's allowed me for the last couple of years on a shoestring to pull together and develop a pretty strong brand. Now is the hardest time, but I think that in terms of loss has definitely affected how I approach everything and how I value everything. And yeah, like, she was an amazing woman, but also other challenges, my mental health. I'm at war with myself. I'm at war with the world. I'm at war with everything. I'm at war with things that have never happened in my head all of the time. And I think that helps me with my relationships with people in terms of I'm able to give people space, or if I can see people behaving or saying things in a certain way, I'm able to either relate or give them a flip side and help them through. I can understand when people need space. I can understand when people need to rant, and I am there for them. I also sometimes have to shut myself off from people because I need to escape from reality, which can affect, kind of like sometimes I'm, not there, not for loved ones, but, like I just have to turn my phone off for a little bit and just keep myself to myself because I need that space. So I think, I wanted to pay tribute to my grandma with that answer, because I think, also talking about inheritance isn't an easy thing.
No.
And some people aren't that lucky. And like I said, like, in the scheme of things, it wasn't a huge amount of money, but it was like, it was substantial enough for me to support my family and do this and cut down the amount of freelance work that I do. But I'm owning that because every penny of it has gone back out to other people. So it's not like nepotism or, like generational wealth or anything like that. And I have to be honest, I have to be transparent for all the reasons that we said before. You identify me as an honest person when I know that there were large parts of me where I covered myself up with dishonesty. It's really important for me to, if you're up there, Grandma.
She's listening, Dave.
She's amazing. She's 94.
She'll be proud of you, honest to God. She'll be so proud. Thank you so much for your
like you wanted the rawness,
vulnerability and your sharing. Thank you. Thank you. You've got me going as well. Oh my goodness, Dave. Thank you so much. Beautiful. It's been a long, long journey of healing, Dave. I've done the therapy and I'm still in it deep. It's been essential, but more than anything, it's been my spirituality and my boy that's saved me. That connection to something bigger than myself, to the energy, the nature, the spirit. And I think that's what keeps bringing me back to centre, and my why, why I'm here, like, for the loss of my nephew. It reminds me to slow down. It reminds me to breathe and to remember why I'm doing this in the first place. So when it comes to mental and emotional well-being, what practices or habits have helped you stay grounded while pursuing your passions?
Not all of them are particularly wholesome. I self-medicate on a lot of things, but the biggest thing I self-medicate on is my family and music and like that. And work. I throw myself into everything. Also exercise, nature. We live in a wonderful part of Wales, which is completely overlooked, and it's great because it means we can afford to live there. So nature, being out in fresh air, spending time with my partner and my kids, especially now they're a bit older, like 13 and 10. So we're a gang. We're a gang. They swear, they're chopsy, they're smart, they're sassy. And like just the jokes on jokes on jokes. And, that was something that was really special to my family growing up, especially between me and my brother and my dad, very boyish, very like bang, 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 like banter, banter, banter on top of each other. Like, and that's currency and humor, like losing myself in the jokes with the family. And, you know, 1 minute I could be horrendously annoyed with something, and then I sit down and my son will say something funny, or something will be brought up, and like all four of us are just pinging off each other. And that is some of the best therapy that I've ever found. I think exercise was a big thing for me, and it has been off and on. But since music, because I stopped playing the guitar for 20 years, I stopped DJing for 10 years. Both of those have come back into my life in the last 2 or 3 years. And again, you know, that's better than any drug. Way better. Playing the guitar with my daughter, teaching my son to mix a little bit just for his homework, and just showing him, and them having opinions on music and taking them to concerts. It's just absolutely amazing. And again, just a real reminder, a real grounding experience of, right, everything that I've ever done is all worth it for this moment. Helping people grounds me, being that workaholic, like constantly trying to find new ways to talk about the artists that I work with and push their music is therapy for me. Seeing them thrive, seeing them buzz, like getting a message off one of my artists, Sonnet, saying that Rob Swire, his hero from Pendulum, is in his inbox, and what should he do?
Amazing.
And like, these are things which really help me like put things in perspective and go like, wow, like, you know, I'm buzzing off their buzz. But I think the main thing that I really, you know, it keeps me sane is, you know, like you say, love, really. Not appreciating just how much having a family would do that for me, and do that for us. You know, me and my partner have been together for the best part of 30 years. Like, you know, I was a scally little kid when she found me. And we've managed to stay together in that way.
Amazing.
And I think, you know, having that with the family and replicating all the bits that I really loved about growing up with my family, the humour, the telly, the films, the music, the going to festivals, all of the bits that I really loved, and now passing them on to the kids in my own way, and giving them a bit more access. Like, you know, I was DJing at a festival and they're there backstage. Like, you know, it doesn't happen all the time, but for them to get that little insight,
Absolutely.
I've got goosebumps.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that, Dave. That was, I don't think it's not about chasing the highs anymore, and believe me, I've chased a few over the years. I think it's about staying connected, you know, creating something that lasts and gives back. You know, that's the energy I want to carry forward, you know. What would you want the next generation to carry forward?
If my career and my path has any lessons to be learned, is that have fun, connect with humour, don't take yourself too seriously. And don't, like, I think we're all obsessed with instant results. All of us are. But the newer generation are like literally been brought up with that kind of instant results and instant. But I have so much faith in the new generation. Seeing my kids, like the way that the YouTube channels that my son watches, like they're trick shots. And there are kids out there, they're now adults, they've been doing it for years. They'll spend 80, 90, 100 hours trying to perfect that dart throw to hit the bullseye, which hits this, like these really mad, complex things. And it's like, wow, cool. Like, they're teaching you discipline. And that was me in my room when I was grounded. I'd be like playing the guitar for hours and hours and hours, learning to juggle, playing games. And that discipline, and the new generation have really got a handle on that way more. I think we come through. So there's been like this kind of era of, you could be the next big superstar in these 10 easy steps. Shorts have made things look so easy. But then the new generation are kind of like, hang on a minute, how do I actually really get to do that? Not do the copy, or people who haven't got money. So it's just like, well, okay, let's practice this. I've got a deck of cards. Let's try and practice that card throwing thing, because I've got nothing else. So I've got loads of faith in the new generation. Like the people I've been mentoring, you know, mentorships are crazy, mind-blowing experiences, and then they leave you and it's like a breakup all over. You know, they've succeeded in their mentorship, they've gone on to bigger things. Like, oh, I was really enjoying working with you. But, you know, like these are all people half my age. Shanice, who I'm mentoring at the moment, she's only a couple of years older than my daughter. She's 19 or 20 and she's got her head so screwed on. It's like, if you're a representative of your generation, we are in the safest hands. And there's a conversation I was having with somebody, and he's in his early 20s, I think so anyway, or might be late 20s, Chamber, his name is. And I was saying about how like bleak everything seemed, and he smiled and he was like, no, I'm excited, mate. And I was like, what? And he was like, well, come on, there's change in the air, like you can feel it.
Big shift.
And if I get to see revolution in my lifetime,
there's something coming, Dave.
And this is what I have. So whatever I want to pass down, I don't want anybody to be held back by what previous generations have done. I want to be there to support. And that's what I'm doing with all the people that I'm working with on the label. That's what I do with anybody who calls me up and asks for advice. If I've got time, if I'm able to help, I will help and support. And I think it's a duty.
Absolutely.
You know, you're a few years older than me, but we're the same generation. It's our responsibility to help the new generation, because some things aren't quite as easy. Some things are easier. Connectivity, technology, all of that. But most things are harder because there just isn't the expendable income anymore. And people can't have hobbies. Everything has to be a side hustle, a side income. You know, all of that has changed so much. There aren't art colleges. There aren't so many scholarships and stuff. So if we're in a position to help, we need to. And that's what I want to pass on is help each other, be open-minded to every possibility. And the new generation, I love you. And I love the fact that they've accepted me as well. Because when I was that age, when I was in my early 20s, anyone over 30 could fuck off. Honestly, I didn't care for their opinion because they were the people who were blocking me out of DJ gigs and doing stuff in my local town. That's like, if you're a bit older than me, then I don't even want to know you. I won't even sell you weed. Like, you know, I would sell people like my age type of thing. Like, I didn't want older people because they were the people who were blocking all the doors.
That's right.
So I didn't have any respect for older people. I'm so glad that that's not the case for me. But I think it's because going back to like showing people respect, speaking to them on the level, not being like, well, it's better in our day. It's like, no, it wasn't. And that's like something you can't help that time you were born in. So, you know, I started going raving 94 and people were like, oh, you missed the best times. You missed the best times. So I saw shit now. So don't tell me that. I literally, this is my second ever time I've come out and it's amazing.
Absolutely.
And so I've always had this disdain for slightly older people, but also like a real appreciation of the fact that now I am that older person. The younger generation don't do that, but I think that's because of my actions. I don't think I behave like a normal 47-year-old in any way. And yeah, big up the new generation. They've got it all in hand, I think.
Dave, I think that's a perfect note to end on. And I think, you know, it's like what you say, it's about what we give back to the minute. And I'm really excited about what's coming through. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for your honesty. Thank you for the love that you have for the culture, because it always shines through. And it's been an absolute honour to share this space with you.
Likewise. Thank you for the way that you've approached this and the way that you see me. Everybody else has interviewed me because of the big brands that I've worked with, or the fact that I'm, you know, like very specifically about journalism or something like this, but you've looked at this a lot more holistically. You've given space for my mental health and my quirks, and given me space to just be me and not just talk about specific industry related things or passing on advice. I've actually just been able to dwell on my life. And I don't get to do that in many interviews.
Well, I think it's important to see the human side of you, and you've certainly showed that today, so thank you.
Brilliant.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.